evening. Welcome to our program, Women to Women. I'm Carol Paz, your hostess, and as always, we have a very special lady with us tonight that I'm going to introduce to you in just a moment. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsors. Dr. Kent Gabriel, noted plastic surgeon right here in Carson City. Dr. Gabriel is an outstanding counselor and physician with a specialty in microsurgery for hands. I'd also like to thank the Horseshoe Club. The Horseshoe is one of Carson City's downtown historical places, and if you'd like to have just a relaxing evening and see a part of the Old West as it used to be, step into the Horseshoe Club. And I'd also like to thank Bank of the West. When it comes to customer service and knowing who you are, Bank of the West does an excellent job. So if you are interested in a local bank right here in Carson City, do go in and see Bank of the West. And I'd like to introduce to you now Lisa Schuette, who is our special guest. Lisa, I'd like to welcome you to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Lisa, I know that you have a history, of a family history here in Carson. But before we get started on that, tell us a little bit about where you come from originally. Were you born here in Carson City? Are you native?
I am a native Carson City girl, born and raised in the old wooden hospital here in Carson.
On Fleshman?
On Fleshman,
oh
absolutely.
My goodness. Okay.
Yes, and I lived right across the street.
So when you were growing up, Lisa, I know that you've seen many changes in Carson between that time and now, but do you have a history of medicine in your family, besides being connected to the hospital?
My mother is a nurse, and she's no longer alive, but she actually started the nursing program in Carson City, the one that is now at WNC, and it used to be in the basement of the Presbyterian Church. And
she must have been a real role model for you in many ways.
Incredible, brilliant woman, loving, kind, thoughtful.
What kind of a woman is it that can start a program such as nursing? What kind of characteristics or attributes did you see in your mom that said, wow, this is a lady of noteworthiness?
Passion. Passion. Just being a natural teacher and somebody who cares deeply about not only the skill of nursing, but the art of nursing and the human element of it. And she just was able to convey those kinds of things to her students.
Do you have brothers and sisters?
I have an older sister, and I had a younger brother who is no longer alive.
Okay.
And my older sister, Susan Martinovich, head of NDOT, and is now retired. And
you have a lot of roots, community, social
yes.
roots here in the city. So what was it like for you growing up as a kid? What were your favorite interests? What were your favorite activities? Where would you find yourself on a Saturday afternoon?
Well, Saturday afternoon was in our front yard. I lived in the middle of Mountain Street, or the middle of the block, and all the kiddos would come to our house, and we would play games, capture the flag, Red Rover. Right across the street was the field, and then we'd hike up. And picnics and pollywogs and
so you had a very together childhood.
Oh, amazingly so. Absolutely.
And that makes a difference in us, doesn't it?
Huge difference.
So what were your, you were an outdoor kid.
Yes.
Okay, going back and forth into other people's yards and your own yards, okay. It was a time when we could do that.
Yes, it was.
Very, very similar to my childhood. And yet, as you began to develop into a teenager and then into a young woman, where did you find your interests more and more taking you?
You know, my family, they were always helpers. They would take in animals, take in stray animals, and they would take in kids who needed help. And so my parents, we always had a son or a daughter of a family friend or of somebody who needed help. And then later on, my parents were foster parents. Or we always had animals that were injured. And so...
How did you know how to take care of these injured animals?
You just figured out. My mom, you know, with her nursing background, and my dad being a good sport, and me, of the three of us, really the animal person. We would just get in there and just, you know, it's trial and error. And I can't say it always went well, but the intent was
You were the mini
correct.
hospital across the street from the major one.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So what were some of those memories that you have of maybe one of the animals that you just fell in love with, or one that was the most in need? How did that turn out?
Well, pig bird, this little bird that fell out of the nest, and back in the day when everybody thought that, you know, you can't put it back or else it'll be rejected, which isn't true. But we raised it from just tiny, and it would just fly around the house, and it was just part of the family.
You have this bird flying around inside the house.
Yes.
How long did he stay with you, or did he go out a window and never come back?
You know, he eventually did do that, but you know, I was a little kiddo, so I was probably 7 or 8, so I don't really know, but I remember at least a whole summer, and as he got bigger, and then he flew.
Yes, yes. That reminds me, as a teacher back in New York, we had, I think it was a bird, it was a yellow canary, that must have been someone's pet. But our windows were open during the spring and summer for refreshing air. There's no air conditioning. And this little yellow canary sat on the edge of one of the open windows and perhaps was attracted to the sound of children's voices. It was used to it. And he stayed with us all through the spring.
Wow.
And one day when he didn't show up, we didn't know whether to laugh or cry, be joyful or be sad. But he came back in 4 hours to let us know he was okay.
Really?
Yes,
oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful.
So when you had children or other young people coming to your home, was it for, and your family was a foster family. How did that work out?
You know, you just make another spot at the table. And again, all the kids came to my house. We would play in the front yard, and my mom was just an amazing cook. So you just make another spot at the table. And you know, you can't say you always love it.
Right. But you were willing to share.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It is what it is.
And that bespeaks of a huge heart in that family.
A huge heart, yes.
A huge heart. Willing to take on challenges, willing to take on differences. Because you think that everybody's raised the same. When you're a kid, that if you leave your home and go to the next home, they eat the same way, they sit around the table the same way, they go to bed at the same time, they do their homework. You know, and that's an eye-opener, isn't it?
Yes,
because
it
it's
is.
not.
You're right.
And when you come back to your own home, I think most of us realized how very fortunate, how very blessed we were in so many ways.
Oh, absolutely.
To have the home environment that we did.
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay, so you graduated from Carson High School?
Graduated from Carson High.
And after that, what happened?
After that, I lived in Sweden for a year. I was a Rotary exchange student. And this was during a time when my brother, he had a brain tumor. And so while my family was really dealing with the tragedy of that and the not knowing what would happen, I lived with a delightful family in Sweden. And I was supposed to live with 4 different families. And I connected so well with the first that I stayed.
What a great experience.
Oh, amazing. In fact, just this last week, my host mother's granddaughter was here visiting. And I've been back to Sweden 9 times. And
you
I have
really
a
did
godson.
connect.
Oh, it's, yeah, weddings, funerals, all of that. And
what was it that clicked?
I just, you know, I was the middle daughter, and I took the spot of the middle daughter. Their daughter, Helena, went to Canada. And I just fit in, and the older sister and the younger brother, Anna and Gustav, were the same age as my brother and sister, and Elsa and Per were just loving and wonderful people. It just was a perfect match.
So you learned to speak Swedish while you were over there,
I did.
and you still do to this day,
You know, I wish I could say my grammar was good, but I can get by. It's painful for the listener, but I can get by.
So what did you learn from that experience? What did you bring home to the States with you?
You know, first of all, home is very special. But I also learned that there's so much out there. And there's, you know, different cultures provide a different way of seeing the world.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
And with a second language, you really have a richer experience with your own language. And there are ways to describe things that normally you wouldn't think of.
And it takes away a lot of fears that you might have had.
Absolutely.
What did you get rid of in the way of negativity, or you realize, there's nothing to be afraid of in doing such and such?
People think travel is such a big deal, or it's so difficult, or it's such an undertaking. It truly isn't. Really, all you need, granted you need some money for the ticket and spending money, you needed the passport and you need a few essential items. but really, there's nothing you can't get once you're there.
Yes,
and
you can leave so much behind.
Truly, and if you're just willing to talk and get to know folks and be open to learning and be open to being respectful of other cultures and other ways of doing things, it's a wonderful, wonderful journey.
And you really become an ambassador,
truly,
for the culture that you're representing, which in this case was the American culture,
absolutely,
which is quite different from any others.
Oh my, yes.
And sometimes Americans travel with the expectation that they're going to be able to receive or have or be able to purchase exactly what they want, which is not the case. No, and that's a good lesson.
It's a great lesson.
Yes.
And with every little hiccup, that's a new story. Yeah. And that's all part of the fun, and that's what makes the memories. And
so if you had to say, if you were mentoring or encouraging someone to become an exchange student, represent the Rotary Club, or become involved, connected to a club that sponsors this type of a program, would you still do it even in today's world?
Oh, I do. And yes. And I tell students all the time, absolutely, it's life-changing in such a profound way. And even, you know, my experience was exceptional, but even without an exceptional experience, there's such an opportunity to learn.
It certainly builds bridges.
Truly it does.
And like you have said, we need to have a perspective other than our own cultures. Because if we expect to be able to communicate well, exchange opinions, listen to what others are thinking about us and of us, it helps us grow very much as a person.
Absolutely.
And eventually as a state, as a nation.
There's a gentleman, his name is Daryl Davis, and he's a musician, and he says, while you are willing to actively listen, you're able to passively teach. And I think that is so incredibly powerful.
Well, we're going to keep that thought. We're going to come back to the second half with not a brand new Lisa, but a Lisa that is experienced more in the world of what she wants to do, and certainly in the world of compassion. We'll tell that story in just a moment. Wonderful. Don't go away.
Apex SCF provides cutting-edge, hands-on training that effectively addresses today's threats of violence.
The Apex Stay Alive course teaches proven methods for personal protection and attack countermeasures that can be applied in any environment. In your home, at the workplace, or on campus, Apex will teach you the necessary skills to stay alive, including how to recognize and react to an active shooter scenario.
If you knew you had to fight for your life tomorrow, would you train today? Contact us now to sign up for a class in your region.
I was 36, wanted to do something that was boldly different. We sold our house, drove west with the idea that we were going to be in the wine industry. We lived in a teepee for 2 months.
I mean, if you're going to do something, why not do it with your whole heart?
It's that creative outlet of being able to make something, and make something that comes from the land. Bank of the West said, we have complete faith in your brand. Don't do anything to compromise it. Banks don't say things like that.
Are you looking for a healthier lifestyle? A more nutritious diet? Do you care about quality? If your answer is yes, or if you are just curious, come into Villa Basque Deli and Cafe right here in Carson City, Nevada. Discover fine Portuguese extra virgin olive oils, vintage balsamic vinegars, and a wide assortment of international health teas provided by distributor Carpa Nevada LLC. In addition to these terrific items, Villa Basque is also the home of Pete's famous Basque chorizo, handmade on the premises from Pete's secret family recipe. Satisfy your culinary curiosities. Don't delay.
Come to the Carson Horseshoe Club for fun and friendly service. Play your favorite games. Join our Players Club, where you get cash for points plus food comps, and enjoy casual dining in our Lucky Horse Grill. Get it all in the heart of downtown Carson City at the family-owned, local favorite Carson Horseshoe Club.
Hi, I'm Stephen Lincoln with CarsonCityHomes.com, Carson City's original online real estate resource.
At CarsonCityHomes.com, you get effective and easy-to-use tools to help you select your next home today. With our easy-to-use website, you can search listings throughout Northern Nevada and narrow the results by selecting every facet, quirk, and quality you desire. Visit CarsonCityHomes.com.
In business for over 5 years, Play Your Own Music offers music lessons from the best quality music instructors in the area. We also offer band instrument rentals, guitar repair, and we have a recording studio on site. Call us at 885-PLAY.
Welcome back to the second half of Women to Women. We're here with Lisa Schuette. I'm Carol Paz, your hostess. And before we return to that quotation that I asked you to hang on to from Lisa, I'd like to thank our sponsors for the second half of the show. We'd like to thank Villa Basque Deli and Cafe right here in Carson City, Nevada. It's the home of Pete's famous Basque chorizo, and it is delicious. We'd also like to thank Carpa Nevada LLC, importer of fine Portuguese olive oils, aged balsamic vinegar, and international health teas. And finally, but certainly not last, CarsonNow.org. It's the 24/7 place to go for anything that's happening here in Carson City. Remember that site, CarsonNow.org. So let's return to Lisa. Lisa,
Okay.
That was an interesting quote and a stimulating one to my mind. Would you repeat it again?
The quote is, by my willingness to actively listen, I am able to passively teach.
And that has probably, because it's impacted you, it's been with you for years, and you've taken it with you into what you do now.
Yes.
Where do we find Lisa Schuette right now with her passion?
Well, Lisa Schuette is the founder of Carson Animal Services Initiative, and it is a nonprofit that we created. And I say we because nobody creates a nonprofit by themselves. You know, I might have come up with the idea, but there have been so many people who have really been helpful in seeing this be as successful as it is.
Right, their contributions were necessary.
Absolutely. But you know, Carson City's shelter is 50 years old, and we have outgrown it. Half a century. And when I was a kid, you know, early 60s, Carson had a population of 5,000 people. We have 55 plus, the same small shelter. And there have been a few changes, but we have outgrown that area. And everyone for years has talked about how we need a new shelter. Well, we need to do more than talk.
Yes.
And so I went to the Board of Supervisors and I said, if I create a nonprofit and actively raise money, we are going to help Carson City build this shelter. So we're not asking the city to suddenly pay for everything. We're willing to help in this. And it's all about the bridge building and all about the teamwork.
So as you're listening, to the Board of Supervisors, what are you hearing them thinking or saying to you?
I'm hearing that they're incredibly grateful that somebody is willing to say, here is a solution. It's not just about what you should do, what you need to do, what you're not doing, what you've done wrong, but here is what needs to be done, but we're willing to be a part of that process. We're willing to help.
And I think you've hit a key point. Forget about the negativity.
Oh my.
Forget about going back to the past and saying, okay, this is what we did wrong, but you're offering them something positive to move on and to work together. And I think that's a key to earning the public's not only interest, but their respect and enthusiasm for the project.
Absolutely.
So where are we at this point?
Well, Cassie, in the year and a half that we have been a nonprofit, we have raised almost $100,000, which I think is incredible.
It is.
And 28,500 of that came even before we got our nonprofit status, but resulted from the whole idea of becoming a 501c3 being put on the table. So that's amazing, and that got the ball rolling. And then since then, our volunteers have just been working tirelessly on ongoing fundraisers and community awareness campaigns to bring in more money.
And sometimes that helps explain the not passivity, but the people who are behind the scenes, working aggressively, working with a full heart, but they're quiet partners. Sometimes we need those busy bee workers who just say, tell me what it is that needs to be done, and I'll do it. I'll be a part of it. That's so important, that contribution. All right, Lisa, when we think about what the shelter had 50 years ago, what was it?
It was a dog pound.
It was originally a dog pound.
And someone once said a dog pound protects people from animals. An animal shelter, I heard it as protects animals from people, and in some cases, sadly, that's the case. But an animal shelter also provides opportunities for animals when their people can no longer provide. You know, tragically, folks have had to leave animals behind, and this provides an opportunity for that forever home.
A safe place.
A safe place.
Now, when you say a forever home, how do you mean that?
What I mean is an adoption that works. Okay. An adoption where people adopt the animal knowing that, you know, nothing is perfect. There always are little hiccups and problems, but that the people adopting animals are committed to providing a loving home and providing the necessary, you know, food, shelter, medical attention, all of that.
You know, in my family, my son's family went to an animal shelter to find a dog for their 3 little girls. And they picked Jack. And Jack was already 8 years old. He was mostly a lay down and sleep dog. But little did they know until they inquired further, because the knowledge was there at the animal shelter, and they could have told him this, but somehow it didn't work out that way. And Jack kept nudging my 2-year-old granddaughter into a corner. Not doing anything destructive toward her, not barking, etc., but nudging her into a corner. And they decided to take Jack back to the shelter. They just couldn't have that happening to their 2-year-old. And they were informed that Jack was a sheep herding dog. He was herding her into
the 2-year-old was like a little sheep, little lamb.
Yeah, and once they understood that, and they could retrain Jack. So animal shelters provide not only a background on the type of dog, but dogs that match other personalities of a family.
Absolutely.
Much better than what we've had in the past.
And we're so much better about that, and we realize that there are different breeds and different temperaments that fit the needs of different families.
What are some of the easiest dogs to adopt out, and what are some of the most difficult? Now, we're not just talking about dogs, are we?
No, there's lots of cats.
Yes.
Lots of cats. You know,
let's take dogs first.
Easiest. Well, it's hard to say because there's always, you know, there's always the exception to the rule. But of course, the labs are delightful.
Okay.
But they're a lot of work in terms of training. But their hearts are just so full of love.
They're a great family dog.
Great family dog.
Yes.
Retrievers, certainly. But you don't typically see the retrievers in the shelter.
What about little dogs?
The little dogs can be a lot of work, but they're cuddle bugs. Unfortunately, though, the Chihuahuas are the second most euthanized breed because of overbreeding and because of that whole accessory idea that you get a little dog to have as an accessory. And so pit bulls, which are horribly misunderstood, they are just amazing animals. Pit bulls and Chihuahuas are frequently euthanized.
What about cats?
Cats. You know, cats come in all shapes and sizes and personalities.
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately, you know, we have such a huge feral population in Carson, and I say unfortunately in that...
And that's wild.
The wild. And people don't understand the need to spay and neuter. You know, cats will come into season at a very young age. And so it creates this huge problem that shelters can't deal with. And so... you know, I'm off topic in terms of the easiest cats to adopt, but
you're helping us
you know,
become more knowledgeable.
The feral cats, it is so incredibly important to spay and neuter, so incredibly important. And even if you have a male cat and you're not worried about kittens per se, those male cats are creating kittens.
Yes.
And if we could get on top of spay and neuter in this community, actually in this world, we would just have, our problems would just diminish exponentially.
Well, Lisa, let me ask you, if a person wants to call the animal shelter or know where to bring an animal that they're trying to make a decision on, what would be the address or the telephone number?
You know what? Honestly, I don't have that number offhand.
Okay, well, that will go up on our screen. No
okay.
Problem. But in your years of working with animals and your compassion for so many projects that entail living things, whether they're humans or whether they're animals. What have you come to realize about pets and pet owners, pets and families? There have to be a lot of positives going for them.
Oh my gosh. Prior to being a teacher, I was a deputy and a juvenile probation officer. And I would be booking in really upset, distraught kids. And we had a kitty cat that just kind of adopted us. And we called him the prison cat. And we would have an angry, upset child or teenager. And a little while later, that cat is walking around, and the kiddo is just petting the cat. And then Kitty is in its lap, in his or her lap, and it just calmed everyone down. That is the beauty of animals.
And animals won't do that unless they have a distinct sense of trust, I would think, in the person that they are.
But they'll also build that trust, which is really incredible. I mean, that's that almost actively listening, passively teaching. And, our shelter works with inmates from the prison on the Pups on Parole program. And some of the dogs that are hard to manage and are kind of naughty, they're sent to the prison and assigned an inmate. And it's a delightful, beautiful program because we have these people who are giving back to the community, and we have these animals that desperately need a chance. And it's a wonderful combination. And I know that those inmates, when they speak to their families, are now saying, guess what I did? And look at the difference I made. And last year, about 350 dogs were adopted from the PUPS program. And that program also provides room that we don't have at our shelter. And it provides opportunities. So it's just a win-win. It's just a beautiful opportunity for people to become their best with the help of animals. And that's that element that so many folks
It's a component that sometimes gets left out. It's right there waiting for us. Lisa, I want to say thank you so much for being on our program.
Well, thank you for having
us.
And
sharing the knowledge that you have and the vision that you have for what is coming down soon with a brand new animal shelter. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we thank you for being a part of our audience tonight. Remember to tune us in every Thursday from 7 to 7:30, and we'll see you next week with a brand new guest. Take care.
Hi, I'm Roy Halliday. As pet owners, we can help end the suffering of millions of dogs and cats. Animal shelters struggle to assist in huge numbers of animal litters. Many more suffer on the streets, never even reaching the safety of a shelter. My family does our part in making sure our pets are spayed and neutered. For more information, contact my friends at the Humane Society of the United States. Remember, pets are for life.
Within 6 years, an unspayed female dog, her mate, and all of their puppies, and their puppies' puppies, if none are ever neutered or spayed, add up to 67,000 dogs. If you allow 2 cats and their surviving offspring to breed for 10 years, in that time you will have produced 80,399,780 cats. This assumes 2 litters per year and 2.8 surviving kittens per litter. Each day, 70,000 puppies and kittens are born in the United States. As long as these birth rates exist, there will never be enough homes for all the animals. As a result, millions of healthy, loving cats, dogs, kittens, and puppies face early death as a form of animal control. Others are left to fend for themselves against automobiles, the elements, animals, and cruel humans. What can you do to stop the suffering? Please spay or neuter your pet to prevent more homeless animals because they are a cause for pause. Thank you.